إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا فإنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. عباد الله، إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة. I bear witness that there is no true deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final and last messenger. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Protect yourself from the anger and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by fulfilling your obligations and staying away from the prohibitions. And do not die except in a state of Islam, in a state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say the truth. Say what is correct. If you do so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would correct and rectify your actions. And whoever obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, he would attain the ultimate success. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the best of speech is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the best of guidance is the guidance of His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. O you who believe, the worst of matters are newly innovated matters in this religion. Because whatever is newly innovated in this religion would lead you astray. And whatever would lead you off the path, whatever would lead you astray will lead you to the hellfire. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I would like to share some reflections with you today. In one of the stories of Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. And it was a time after Musa alayhi salam, and they had another messenger, another prophet sent to them. And at that time they had been lost in the desert for quite a few years. And they had asked that messenger to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send them a king by which that can lead them into battle, to regain the land that has been taken from them wrongfully. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them what they want, the reaction was interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَثَ لَكُمْ طَالُوتَ مَلِكًا. Their prophet had said to them that Allah has sent to you Talut as your king. Now this is something they had desired. They wanted to fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they even, when their messenger asked them, what if it was made obligatory upon you? Would you fight? They said, وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نُقَاتِلَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَقَدْ أُخْرِجْنَا مِنْ أَمْوَالِنَا وَأَبْنَائِنَا. Why should we not fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we were kicked out of our lands and our children? But when their prophet at that time had told them, it is time, here is your king that you wanted, it was quite interesting what they said. They said, أَنَّ يَكُونُ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ عَلَيْنَا وَنَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْمُلْكِ مِنْهُ وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. They said, how come he would be the king above us? And we have more right in kingship than he does, and he was not giving anything from wealth. Very interesting. They even had their own logic and excuse to rectify their reaction. When the Prophet ﷺ clarified for them why, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاهُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. He said, verily that he has chosen him from among you, and he had given him strength and knowledge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives his kingship to whomever he desires. You don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't question him. He chooses and he picks. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable. Now what I want to point out is their reaction was a lack of submission to Allah. And it's important for us to ask this question. What is it that would make Muslims who have a prophet not submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Not to conform to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is not a problem that was back then, but we even see it nowadays. But the question is important. Because we have to realize that every messenger was sent with the principles across every religion that they're the same. The Prophet ﷺ said, الأنبياء أولاد علات دينهم واحد وأمهاتهم شتى. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ he said that the prophets, in their relation to each other, أولاد علات, it's a relationship where they have the same father but different mothers. And then he clarified, he said, دينهم واحد, their religion is one. It's the same message. It's the same message, to surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, yes, they had different legislations. This is where they differed. So what is it that made Bani Israel act this way? It is a state of mind. It is how you perceive things that perhaps can make us either retaliate and reject or accept and submit. When you look at their argument, you would get a sense perhaps that they themselves maybe perhaps desire to be kings. And so when an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes that is opposite to one's desire, unless that person's love to Allah is greater than their desire, sometimes they will just follow their desires. And it's a mindset that did not just make them sometimes not obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but rather even sometimes call some of the messengers liars. Even further, hunt them down and kill them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us this clearly. He said, أَفَكُلَّمَا جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ بِمَا لَا تَهْوَى بِهِ أَنفُسَكُمْ اسْتَكْبَرْتُمْ فَفَرِيقًا كَذَّبْتُمْ وَفَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ. He said, أَفَكُلَّمَا, is it every time that a messenger comes to you, بِمَا لَا تَهْوَى أَنفُسُكُمْ, that goes against your desires, اسْتَكْبَرْتُمْ, you became arrogant. And so a group of them you would call them liars, and a group of them you would kill. This is the consequence sometimes of putting your own desires before the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's an indication that in reality, that you might not be loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and understanding the status of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and understanding our own status in a way that should be understood. We are the servants and Allah is our master. We are the slaves and He is the master. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it's very important. This is a characteristic that they had. And so we would learn lessons from these to be careful. These are pitfalls. We need to know them so that we can navigate our way and reach safely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But also the response indicates something that is interesting. It seemed that they were judging Allah's commands based on their own view of justice. Rather, it should be the opposite. They should be judging things based on the binoculars or the scope or the lenses of Islam. They should not be judging the rules and regulations based on what they think is just. In reality, it is a way of self-conceit, arrogance, to think that your way of deciding what is just is what Allah should rule by. They want to fit Allah's regulations into their view, whether they and them submitting and conforming to the views of Allah. We see that in our world now. Some of the Muslims want to twist and turn Islam to fit their way of life, whether they're fitting their life into the way of Islam. And so they had this judgment. They said, how can he be a king above us? It is unjust. And some of the Mufassirin say that Talut belonged to a tribe from Bani Israel that never had any kings from them or prophets. And so they felt that it's unjust to do this now. And they even had actually a scale to determine what is correct or not. And it seemed to be very worldly scales, material. وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. And he did not have any financial means. He did not have any wealth. This is how they measured things. They didn't realize that Allah measured things in other ways. That Allah is more wise than them. Allah knows more than them. قُلْ أَأَنْتُمْ أَعْلَمُ أَمِ اللَّهِ. Say, who knows more, you or Allah? And their messengers explained to them why Talut. That Allah gave him what is necessary to lead you now. He has the right qualities. Allah knows His people. He knows what they need. Allah gave him strength and knowledge. And Allah knows everything. Allah's knowledge is wide and vast, unparalleled by anything you can ever think. Two characteristics: desire and misconceptions. The misconception part that they had is that they felt that they had the right, or that they had the idea that their view of justice, their scale of weighing things, whether it's right or wrong, is the right thing to do, and not to conform to Allah's judgment and Allah's scale. That is egotistic. That is thinking that you have mastered the intelligence, to have the foresight and the future telling of what the world needs in terms of legislation. Now I want to compare their reaction to two incidents from the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. The first, and they were both mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, is how they reacted when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordered them and prohibited upon them something that they valued so much, that they considered it one of the most lucrative businesses, that some people had their entire livelihood in trading in it. When Allah prohibited it upon them, what did they do? And that is alcohol, by the way, khamr. Some of them were alcoholics at that time. Others had huge businesses. Their entire trade was based on it. Their entire wealth. And so you can imagine when it's made prohibited, what does that mean? It means that some individuals lost their entire wealth. It means some people who had businesses, it would go. But yet, what was their reaction? The reaction was, as I mentioned in the hadith, that the roads of Medina were flowing with alcohol. They had no hesitation. They got rid of it completely. In fact, in one of the narrations, some of the Sahaba, the cups were going among them. When they heard the news, they dropped it. And he told, one of the companions told Anas, go break the other ones inside. No hesitation. No making excuses. They know by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the best for them in this world and the hereafter. The other beautiful example was from the women of the Muslims, of the Sahaba and the Muhajirat. And it's also mentioned by Aisha radiallahu anha in Sahih Bukhari. When the hijab was made obligatory upon them, it was not before. When it was made obligatory upon them to cover themselves, you're talking about a group of people in Medina who were struggling through hard financial hardships. They did not have many things. Some of them had only 2 garments. But when the order of the hijab came, it was described that the women of Muhajirin and the Ansar, they did not leave the next day until they were all wearing the hijab. To the extent that some of them would rip their own pieces of cloth in half to cover themselves. Complete submission. None of them was saying, how would I look in front of people? It does not match. None of them said, wait till I buy something else. None of them said anything else. No objection. No retaliation. Complete submission to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is the difference? What brought this difference between the companions and what we read in the Quran about Bani Israel? It's mindset. It's how they view things. When they read in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ بِإِذْنِهِ, that Allah calls you to Jannah and forgiveness بِإِذْنِهِ, with His permission. They understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's orders are only meant to bring everything good for them in this world and the hereafter. And they're only meant to keep away from you every harm in this world and this hereafter. When they hear the Prophet ﷺ say, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواه تبعا لما جئت به, that none of you will truly believe until his own desires fall in line and conform with what I have brought. Meaning that you love Allah and His Messenger to the point that they love their orders, that you want to please them, and so you conform. You make your intention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your entire life revolves around Allah. This is your purpose of being. This mindset is completely different from what we see in Bani Israel, where it seemed that their central objective was themselves. Does it conform with my idea of justice? Does it conform with my idea of the scale of what should happen? Does it come in my benefit? Rather, the Sahaba were not like that. It was all about what would please Allah. Because we know He's calling us to what is best. That He is protecting us from all evil, and that is bad. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum showed the best example of submission, because they were able to develop the right mindset. Now the reason I'm mentioning this is because if you also look at how they dealt with the new things that came up after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. Now the death of the Prophet ﷺ meant something that is immense, by the way. It meant that there was no more revelation. That the stream of revelation that was connecting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would cease to exist. That is one of the greatest calamities that would befall Muslims. And so how did they deal with these new things that came up? Did they look for solutions outside of Islam? They didn't. Because they understood that they need to view things, and the only and best solution, the most wholesome type of solution, the healthiest type of solution is ingrained in the teachings of Islam. And so there's no need to go out somewhere else. If a solution that they were looking at contradicted with the teachings of Islam, they rejected it. If it did not, they accepted it. And this is really important because many of the problems we face nowadays, it seems that the last thing we try to solve it by is going back to the principles of our religion. Sometimes that is the case. That's why quite often many of the Muslims would turn to ideologies and ideas. You call them anything you want. They're all end with the isms to explain things that they are facing. Communism, liberalism, socialism, feminism, you name it, any of the isms. They have behind them an ideology that we have to study through the lenses of Islam. And only accept what is beneficial and conforms with our religion. And keep away everything else. Because in the end, we need to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His orders is what is best for us. The Sahaba knew this, and we should know this. Is because everything Allah legislated is based on the qualities of Allah. We say Allah is wise, which means that His legislation is wise, and anything else is not. Otherwise, we're claiming we are as wise, or maybe even above. When we claim some of the legislations are not appropriate for our time and space, that is accusing Allah of His wisdom. We say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, which means that we should know for sure that every single aspect of our religion is merciful. We say Allah is just, which means that we should know for sure that every legislation from Allah in Islam means that it is absolute justice. The sad thing is that we have sometimes some Muslims and even some Muslim countries start to debate this fact and claim that the inheritance, for example, in Islam is unjust. What does that say? It's what Bani Israel said. They're saying it is our view of justice, you have to conform to us. But the reality is, once again, we are the servants and slaves. Allah is our Lord. The Sahaba perhaps understood this because they kept remembering the adhkar of the morning. Remembrance of the morning. The Prophet would teach them to say things. رَضِيتُ بِاللَّهِ رَبًّا وَبِالْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا وَبِمُحَمَّدٍ نَبِيًّا صلى الله عليه وسلم. The dua is, we accept as a statement that they tell themselves. We have to teach ourselves this and teach our kids. We accept and are satisfied with Allah being our Lord, which means Allah is your Lord. You make Him as your Lord. You obey Him. And we accept Islam as our religion and are content with that as our religion. We're not looking for any other ideologies, because anything else will never compare to Islam. When we say the messenger is the Prophet Muhammad is our messenger, we accept the Prophet Muhammad as our messenger, or we're content with him as our messenger, means that we will follow in his footsteps of how he applied things, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because the Prophet was sent to apply this religion. And so this is the mindset we need to have. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, sometimes we don't see how wide and far this goes and complicated things get when we lose that mindset. We see or start seeing some of the tragedies we see in the next generation of Muslims. And we ask why. Maybe sometimes it's out of our hands. It's just how the modern world works. But it does not mean that we do not have solutions. Sometimes you have to go back to the drawing tables and realize with that mindset is that we need to correct things. And nowadays it's not sufficient and enough to depend on the family or depend on the schools, or depend on the masjid. We have to have a collaborative effort of all parties coming together. This is how it always was. This is how Islam established it. It was a family-centric. And when I talk about family, I talk about extended family and groups and neighbors. They would nurture the next generations, find solutions for them. This is how it is. And they all conformed to Islam. Their opinion is shaped by Islam. They leave their views behind because they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better than them. Of course, they leave it if it contradicts. I'm not saying we should not have our own thought process or our critical thinking process. No, nobody's saying that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed us with intellect and logic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala debates logical arguments in the Quran. But the problem happens is when you come in direct contradiction with your logic to Allah's orders. Then you have to say, wait a second, there's something wrong here. And I should not walk in the footsteps of the shaitan, the footsteps of Bani Israel. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring us all back to the straight path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to take our life in a state of iman. To make us among the ones who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entirely. And to walk in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إن الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, it all starts with each one of us by himself. And it is a struggle, but this is where the reward comes in. We have to rethink our individual lives. As Muslims, are we doing the best we can? Are we providing the environment that would be conducive and nurturing for us as individuals and families? And then that would spread. We come as families and communities. And then support one another. And that is perhaps maybe one of the only ways that we can fight many of the ideologies or have even a protection of some of the ideologies that we are submerged in. We have to admit that. We are being affected with these ideologies, sometimes subliminally without even noticing. But the thing is, what do we do when we notice it? The answer should be obvious. We are Muslim. We submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us in the Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma اغفر لنا المؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات والحمد برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين ونسأل الهدى والتقوى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وسائر العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم نسألك الفردوس الأعلى وما قرب إليه من قول وعمل ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليه من قول وعمل. اللهم انصر اخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر اخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم انصرهم على اعدائهم. اللهم انصرهم على اعدائهم وايد المسلمين بنصرك يا ارحم الراحمين. عباد الله، ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واستغفروه فانه غفور رحيم. وقوموا الى صلاتكم يرحمكم الله. واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله وسلم على محمد وعلى اله واصحابه اجمعين.